In this episode, we talk about 2 steps to find happiness. Get excited because this is Tiny Leaps, Big Changes. Welcome to another episode of Tiny Leaps, Big Changes, where I share simple, research-based strategies you can use to get more out of your life. My name is Greg Clunas, and happiness is something that we've built into society as like the goal. It's the thing we're all working towards. It's why we do capitalism. It's to go to work and make money so that we can buy things and support the people we love and take trips and be happy as a result of all of the things we've earned. But is that really true? Is that what happiness actually is? Is that what we should be working towards? When was the last time you stopped to actually question that, to question your understanding of the word happiness, to question the pursuit of happiness, and to ask yourself, is that even a worthwhile goal? It's been a while since I've asked myself that question, and in today's episode, I want to go through it with you, to ask myself that question, ask you that question, and hopefully create a new framework for how we can live better with or without happiness. So what exactly is happiness? I think it really depends on how we define it, what approach we want to take. If I think about it purely from a chemical perspective, happiness is a temporary state, typically associated with dopamine, both the anticipation and the release of dopamine. Now, if you remember a few episodes ago, I did a short series on motivation, and I talked about this podcast from Dr. Andrew Huberman, where he shares that with dopamine, it's not just a molecule of reward, it's actually a molecule of motivation. When we anticipate things, we start to release dopamine in response to the anticipation of that thing. And then once we achieve the thing or gain the thing, we release a larger amount of dopamine. But the dopamine is already there just in the anticipation. And I think the same is true for happiness as well. There's dopamine released both in the pursuit of happiness as well as in the moment of happiness. But just as with all chemical responses in the brain, it's temporary. We can't live in that state of essentially bathing in dopamine. Doing so can be dangerous, and a number of scholars have started to research the results of social media dopamine release and our ability to function in a day-to-day world. And one of these scholars is Dr. Anna Lembke, who says, and I'm paraphrasing from an episode of Metaphysical Milkshake, that we are essentially addicted to dopamine. So much of our lives is run through the lens of dopamine. And this is largely because we are always experiencing the novel, the new, things that we haven't experienced before. This is such an easy thing to do now that we start to crave it. And when we don't do it, we actually see a decrease in happiness and contentment in our regular everyday lives. This is part of why we find ourselves opening email and YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and Twitter at all hours of the day. This is part of why, and I don't know if you've ever done this, I certainly have, where you open your phone and you open Instagram and you realize that you're in Instagram. And so you stop yourself because you want to do a detox. So you stop yourself, you close out the app, and then automatically, without thinking about it, your finger goes to the Instagram app again and you open it again. This is why, because we're craving the novel, we're craving the new. Dopamine plays a massive role in the motivation of a behavior, as well as in the reward for that behavior. Now, zooming back out to the question of happiness, well, from this perspective, happiness is a temporary state, one produced by dopamine and other chemicals. But is that a desirable pursuit? Is that what we actually want? I would say no. I think what we actually want, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, leave a comment on this video. I think what we actually want is contentment. I think what we actually want is balance. We want to feel okay and good. We don't necessarily want or need the massive spikes of happiness. That isn't what we should be chasing. What we should be chasing is a constant, a feeling of contentment with the lives that we've built and with the people that we are. That is what I think most of us mean when we say happiness. However, what's being delivered to us is the dopamine buildup and release. And so when we look at happiness from this perspective, and when we recognize that what we actually want is to be flat, essentially. We want our graph to be a line, not like that. For those of you listening to this, you're just going to have to watch the video to see what I just did when I said that. Head over to YouTube. Link is in the description of this episode. But when we recognize this, that leaves us with two options. Two very simple, very difficult, but very straightforward things we can do to be, quote unquote, happier. The first is to detox. And I know that this is difficult. This doesn't have to be a full detox. This doesn't have to be absolute abolishment of social media. But we do need to retrain ourselves. We do need to retrain our minds so that we aren't constantly craving the next dopamine hit. Because with every spike, there has to be a drop-off. With every spike, there has to be a deficit. It's going to take back from you as much as it gave to you. And so if you want to reduce the lows, you also need to reduce the highs. And that means detoxing from the sources of dopamine spikes, or at least unnatural dopamine spikes. Allowing yourself time throughout the day, or throughout the week, or throughout the month, where you're not engaging on social media, where you're not scrolling constantly, where you're not doing anything new or novel. You are just existing. Now, tools that are really helpful for this are things like journaling and meditation. These are moments in your day that just allow you to exist how you are. They're not about learning new things or pursuing things or gaining something. They're just about understanding what's already there. So habits and behaviors like journaling or meditation can be incredibly helpful ways to support your detox. But in today's world, we need to be purposeful about our detox. We need to understand the role that social media and all of these tools play in reducing our happiness over time and reducing our sense of contentment with our lives, and choose not to engage with them. Now, I think the best way to do this is to just block off time each day where you are not engaging at all. Another approach is to simply limit the amount of time that you're spending each day. But if you truly want to detox, the advice that many give is to completely shut it out for some period of time. And I think if you're able to do this, if you're in a position to do this, you don't rely on it for work or anything like that, I think that's the best way to reset. It's just like an elimination diet. You remove the thing completely for some period of time. Allow yourself to heal. Allow yourself to recover. And then slowly add it back in. So that's the first thing, is to start detoxing from social media. The second is to start practicing gratitude. Now, I know this is an idea given over and over and over again, but allow me to explain why this is so important in the pursuit of contentment. As we've established, throughout our days, we are chasing dopamine. We are living our lives based on what will give us the next hit. That causes us, if we were to measure our happiness, to spike and crash, and spike and crash, and spike and crash. Over time, this creates a situation where we just become used to the imbalance, where we just become used to the lack of control around our happiness, where feeling really, really great is temporary and feeling really, really bad is also temporary. And so that becomes our lives. That roller coaster becomes the thing that we call life. But as we're doing this, we often forget to recognize all of the good that's already there. In our pursuit of the new, we forget that there is already something amazing we should be grateful for. Our partners, our kids, our loved ones, our job, our ability to live somewhere and buy food and do whatever, for the most part, it is that we want. There is good to be celebrated, but we often put it on the back burner in the pursuit of better. And I think if we're going to take this detox, if we're going to stop pursuing better, stop pursuing new and novel, at least for some period of time, then that is the perfect moment to start recognizing what we've accomplished, to start recognizing who is there for us, and start understanding what it is we actually have to be grateful for, because there is probably a lot more than we realize. And if we just pay attention to them, they can help us to balance out that line, that graph. They can help us to balance out and come back from the crashes that detoxing will cause. So combining these two steps together, we can create a better relationship to what we call happiness and what happiness actually is. Thank you so much for being here. If you're listening to this right now, I'd love to have you join us over on YouTube. The link to that is in the description of this episode. And when you're there, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Are you going to try a detox? Are you going to try some other tool for improving your relationship to dopamine? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment down below. And with that said, I've been Greg Clunis, and remember that all big changes come from the tiny leaps you take every day.